Hi class, Dr. Gates here. In this video, I'm going to continue our discussion with modes and talk about two things. One is notation, specifically the key signature. Do we use a key signature? And if we do, which one? You might think that should be an obvious question, but there's a bit to unpack there. And then the second thing I'd like to talk about is finding the center when you're given a piece of music. It's not always that easy, so we're going to talk about some methods of approaching that and look at some music. Okay, take a look at this. I have a short melodic phrase notated 3 different ways. Which one do you prefer? Look carefully at the difference between these. This is what it sounds like. You might have noticed that I borrowed heavily from the wonderful Back to the Future theme, if you've seen that movie. So what is the difference between these 3 different versions of notation? The first one uses a key signature of 3 sharps, and there are no accidentals anywhere to be found. The second one has 2 sharps, but a recurring G sharp as an accidental. And the last example simply uses no key signature whatsoever. As it turns out, each of these is perfectly acceptable in modal music, and you are likely to find all 3 of these scenarios in literature. Let's dig into this a little bit more and talk about the pros and cons of each one. Before we go any further, did you hear that this is in the Lydian mode? This is a major sounding collection, but there's a raised 4th scale degree that is fairly audible. So this is D Lydian. The first example, I'm going to call this option 1, uses a key signature that simply describes the collection of notes. So in this D Lydian collection, we have 3 sharps, and the key signature puts all 3 of those sharps right there. So what are the advantages to that approach? Well, it certainly is clean. It removes all accidentals from the score. But what about this method is not so great? I think one could argue that the key signature, for many people, does more than tell them what notes to play. It also implies a tonal center. When you see a key signature of 3 sharps, you might instinctively be thinking that the tonal center of this music I'm about to play is either A or F sharp if it's minor. In this case, those are both incorrect. The center is D. So the negative thing about this approach is that the baggage of key signatures might actually steer you away from the true tonal center. And as a musician singing or playing this, we really do want to know and understand that D is our tonal center. And now we're looking at option 2. This uses a key signature of 2 sharps, but this also requires that G sharp is consistently used as an accidental. We could refer to this as using the parallel major key signature. This is D Lydian mode, but we're going to use the parallel D major key signature. The advantage to this method is that the key signature indicates, most likely, the true tonal center, which is indeed D. There's another advantage, which personally I like. The modal pitch, that raised 4th scale degree, which is kind of special in this passage, is highlighted with the accidental, almost like there's a light shown upon that particular note. The negative thing, if there is one, about this approach is that we do have to continually write an accidental in the score, so it's a bit redundant. The third approach that I showed you simply uses no key signature. This can be useful when the music is shifting tonal centers quickly or shifting modes somewhat frequently, and this does happen quite a bit in music of the 20th century. The negative aspects of this are pretty clear. It's a little bit cluttered with accidentals because we continually have to write any accidentals needed in this collection. The takeaway from all of this is that all 3 of these scenarios are quite possible, and we have to be careful when looking at the key signature to not assume that it's telling us more than it really is. In order to truly understand the music and analyze a modal piece, we have to look at the big picture, any accidentals, the key signature, and most importantly, listen to it. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk specifically about how to find that tonal center when you're looking at a piece of modal music. As I mentioned, the key signature doesn't necessarily push us in the right direction, so we have to look at other issues. A short list of things that tend to create a sense of tonal center are here on your screen. A certain note might have a lot of metric strength. It might appear on the downbeat, for example. Often it's a use of a particular motivic shape, such as a perfect fifth, like the example we just heard. Those first two notes spanned a perfect fifth, so our ears tend to hear that as so to do, which place that bottom note as a center. You might also hear a tonic triad as a motivic shape throughout the passage. Sometimes a note is simply repeated or of a longer duration than others, and quite often register is an important factor. If a note is continually the lowest note or maybe the highest note of a passage, it can achieve a sense of tonal center. So let's put this to practice a little bit. I'm going to play this passage, and I'd like you to think about the center of this piece and the collection that we're dealing with. And when you put both of those together, what is this mode? That hardly needs an introduction, but that is, of course, Thriller by Michael Jackson. So what is the center of that? You're looking at a key signature of 5 sharps, but as I mentioned, we don't know that that necessarily means we're in B or G sharp. So we have to look at it on its own terms. You'll notice that the first chord we hear is a C sharp minor chord. There's a prominent C sharp on the downbeat. Again, over here on beat 3, when this gesture comes to a close, we're back on a C sharp minor triad. And this might be harder to see, but it's really important. If we look at the melody, it starts on C sharp, and this gesture goes down to G sharp. The overall span of that is from C sharp to G sharp. That is a perfect fifth or a perfect fourth going down. As I mentioned, that relationship can centralize the C sharp. And then this last motive that repeats itself. It's kind of interesting. We do have a B natural right on that downbeat, but if you look at the shape of it, the B natural feels more like an accented neighbor of some sort. The C sharp is really the primary note here, and that becomes clear at the end. So this is a C sharp centric piece. There's no question about that. Now, what is the collection that we're dealing with in the mode? Let's take a look at that. There are no accidentals, so our pitch collection can be found in the key signature, which has 5 sharps. If we write out that collection starting on C sharp, we can see what we're dealing with. C sharp, D sharp, E, that'll have a lowered third. Looks like a C sharp minor scale so far, but then A sharp is here. That would be a raised 6th scale degree, and then a lowered 7th scale degree, te. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, te, do. This is the Dorian mode. It's like minor, but with a raised 6th. Let's look at something quite different. This is a short excerpt from a piano piece by Debussy. Let's hear this short segment. It's very quick. Here we go. So what is the center here? Well, take a look at the left hand. There's a very low C here. It has metric prominence. It's the lowest pitch in the passage, and we also have a perfect fifth here from C to G. So we're looking at a lot of elements that work together to create a C center, and that C never really goes away. It creates a pedal point. Here's the collection in order from C. Notice we have F sharp and also B flat. Can you spot this mode? It's actually one of the hybrid modes. It's a combination of Lydian, the F sharp, and also Mixolydian, the B flat. We can refer to this as the Lydian Mixolydian mode. It's actually derived from the melodic minor scale. If you rotate that scale in various ways, you can pull out this mode from the melodic minor. Kind of cool. That's it for this video. I hope that's helpful in understanding how modes can be notated in various ways, and also how to go about finding the mode when you don't know what you're dealing with until you listen to it and analyze it. Thanks for watching.